Hello, good morning, sir.
Morning.
Our principal has joined, sir.
Yeah, Professor Aswathappa, I see him, but his audio is on the mute. He needs to. Namaskar, sir.
Dr. Ashwath, sir.
Namaskar. Thank you, Professor, for accepting to interact with our faculty.
It's always my pleasure to be with faculty colleagues. Wherever they are, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
More than anything now, the whole education industry is going through a lot of reforms and changes and paradigm shifts.
Yeah.
So it is very essential, all of us, to gear up to the requirement of the country.
Yeah.
And in fact, AICT is also giving us a lot of mandates, lot of directions, guidelines, and unless we upskill ourselves, it is very difficult to manage all the situations. A lot of flexibility has been introduced, so we need to learn a lot of things. So it's not like earlier. And to manage also, it is very important. It is not going to class and delivering lectures. So unless we are comfortable with all these technological tools, very difficult to manage the show. And students are also becoming very dynamic and enterprising. So we need to match them. Otherwise, they will ignore us.
They are always one step ahead of you, or maybe 10 steps ahead of you in technology.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I was also the head of the department during this period. I'm no longer now. I mean, my term was over.
Okay.
But it was very difficult to see all the 400 students in our department disappear their homes. And we have a PhD student population of about 290, something around that. When everybody was asked to go, the entire labs, the whole building was shut, completely shut. You know, the whole place looked like a desert for more than many months. I think many months we did not allow any students to come. And slowly we opened up for PhD students and now some MSc, so on. Yeah, it's a very hard time to live.
Sir, can we start, sir?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
I know professors from civil engineering department, Professor Gettu, Professor Manu Santanam.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Close friends of mine. And
you were here. You were here in the civil department, right?
Yeah. I'm from civil.
When was it?
Sir?
What time you were here?
No. I know.
You have met me before.
Active in this Indian Concrete Institute. So the chapter of IIT Madras is Chennai chapter. So they're all involved in that. Professor Pillai, Professor Gettu, and all others. Manu Santanam and others. We keep meeting in the technical programs at various places.
Okay. Yeah, it was nice. I want to thank you for the invitation you gave. And also it says I2P conference. Yeah. So do you want me to start?
Professor Jalaja, please.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Good morning to one and all present here. I, Dr. Gunavathi HS, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. I would like to take this privilege to welcome the gathering for the today's virtual talk on ICT tools for effective teaching learning pedagogies. We welcome our beloved principal, sir, Dr. Ashwath MU, for the virtual talk. Welcome you, sir. Now we'll welcome our today's speaker, Dr. Mangala Sundar Krishnan, Professor, Department of Chemistry, IIT Madras. Welcome you, sir. I feel honored to welcome all the participants for this virtual talk. Now I would request our beloved principal, sir, to address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor. I will not address, I will just say welcome once again to all of you. And I know all the faculty participating here, you know the importance of the tools in the present context, and especially when we are going for training programs and the blended mode of learning. it is not possible for us to cover the complete thing by regular blackboard teaching or green board teaching. So we need to use a lot of tools and a lot of animations for experiential kind of learning. And in fact, AICT is also suggesting that all the teaching learning process should be with the backdrop of experiential learning. So we need to create as many as possible the models or animations kind of thing in the absence of physical interactions, and more of orientation, practical orientation needs to be given. So one way is earlier we used to take the students to the industry to see and feel the process and experience the process. But now, because of the numbers, it may not be possible for all of us to take all the students to industries for site visits and other things. So in that angle, we need to use the tools, technology for this, and a lot of animations, virtual labs are already there, and we should be able to create some models through these technological tools for making the teaching learning more effective and interesting. So unless we draw the attention of the students, it is very difficult to drive the points and concepts to them. So as per some of the surveys in some platforms, people are talking about the IT surveys that the attention period of a student is about 7 minutes. So if you continue anything continuously more than 7 minutes, they will not be attentive, and it will be boring. So you keep changing every 7 minutes the mode of teaching methodology and interactive modes. So using these tools, then maybe we can draw their attention for 1 hour. That is our standard period time. So whatever we do is less in this present context. The students are always, as Professor mentioned just now, they're always one step ahead of us, and we need to learn more than the students learn. Then only we can draw the attention of the students. And the whole industry, I keep interacting with many of the industries in the last few weeks. The present skill requirement of the industry is huge. They have identified about 14 standard skills that everybody should possess, and all these are on the latest technologies. Whether you are in civil engineering, whether you are in mechanical engineering, unless you are comfortable with the latest required skills, it is very difficult for them to absorb in the industry. So our main objective is to prepare the students, confident students, to handle their career either through jobs or higher studies or research, whatever way, or many of them are talking about now startup. Everybody wants to go start their own enterprise. So in this direction, whatever we do, it is less. I think the role of a teacher has changed drastically now, or the responsibility of all of us has increased many folds. And I request all my colleagues participating in this program to interact with the most experienced professor that we have from IIT Chennai, and definitely his experience will definitely give us some guidance to move forward in this direction. I thank once again the organizers for taking efforts in organizing this workshop. Professor, in the last 2 days, they have also gone through some hands-on practice in the lab. And now this is icing on the cake, your lecture for all of them. And
Okay.
and definitely all of us will be getting benefited through this interaction. Thank you once again, and over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And also, it is my pleasure to be associated with the faculty group all the time for last 26 years, ever since I've been in IIT from 1996. Meetings with faculty colleagues and discussing the issues on education as well as research have always been of a primary focus for many of us. Of course, we have classes, we do take and we do interact with students, but technologies have been evolving, but technology has never been more imposing than it has been in the last 2 years. until then, it was possible for many of you to sort of ignore online learning other than as a small component and then continue with your classes. But
Sorry
once,
for small interruption, sir.
yes, madam.
Sir,
Yeah.
I would request Jalaja madam to give a brief introduction about
Oh,
you,
no,
sir.
no. This is, I think, I know you have to do it, but please don't read from what I gave you. Just say 3 lines. Just say 3 lines. Yeah, I think my profile is there in the website for people to read. Yeah, sure. Please go
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
I'll stop.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Mangala Sundar Krishnan sir is a professor and former head of Department of Chemistry, IIT Madras, between 2018 and 2021. His other major interest in the area of technology enhanced learning. He has been a National Web Courses Coordinator for the National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning for the period of 2003 to 2015 and continues to contribute to HIT, and he is a member of Standing Committee and Domain Expert Committee of the National Machines of Education through Information and Communication Technology, and also the Chief Coordinator for DTH Swayam Prabha since 2016 for education through direct-to-home televisions, all of which the program of Ministry of HRD. He was also an IIT Madras coordinator for National Knowledge Networks and Online Classroom Project, and a member of E-Learning Task Force of Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology since 2005. He was an executive board member of National Institute of Open Schooling and National Council for Educational Research and Training, both of which are government school education and development in India bodies. In addition, he has worked with a large number of teachers in Chennai to create electronic supplements for teachers for physics and chemistry for standard 6 to 8. More than 100 short laboratories, video demonstration of scientific concepts can be downloaded from the site freely, anyone. He is also a member of Empowered National Committee of MOOCs and Assessment Ministry of HRD in the establishment of online certified learning process. Dr. Mangal Sundar, currently a member of Governing Board of India Leading Sector Skills Council, known as a NASCOM IT. So eminent academician members, and has initiated the current online joint mock program between IIT Madras and NASCOM to help higher education students in skill upgradations and campus placement. He has created a digital skill academy in IIT Madras, which offers the skill reskilling and upskilling courses in IT and banking sector. Dr. Mangalam Sundar is a university gold medalist in both BSc and MSc. In addition, he is a recipient of one of the best graduate student teacher award given from the McGill University for 3 years from 1984 to 1986. He was also honored by the former Honorable President of India, Shri Pranab Mukherjee, with citation of contribution of the digital learning in 2017. And Sir has completed his BSc degree in chemistry in 1977 from Madurai University, MSc degree in applied chemistry in 1979 from Madras University. He was a trainee in training school in Baba Atomic Research Center in 1979 and served as a scientific officers for 2 years. And PhD degree in 1998 from McGill University, Canada. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let me continue where I left, essentially at the point where technology has been far more imposing to us because of the COVID requirement, and the COVID wiped clean the entire classrooms for more than 6 to 9 months. And all teachers and all students still had to interact through the online medium. And then we all understand what are the shortcomings in that processes, or we are trying to do our best. So what I would do is to share with you some of the experiences that I have. My feeling is that you know almost all of what I'm going to say, but it would be nice to have your views on how you are experiencing it and how you have found solutions. I think it is as important to me at the end of the meeting to have a takeaway message from you to me as it is for you to have some inputs from my experience. Therefore, every lecture that I agree, I always find out that there should be 2 questions or 3 questions minimally for which I don't know the answer. And that should make me go through the process. So let me share my screen to begin with. Madam Jalaja, how many, what is my duration of the talk? You said
1.5 hours, sir.
Sorry?
1.5 hours, sir.
1.5 hours.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, that's a
You
long
can take
time
more
for all
time
of you.
also, sir, so that our faculty can inspire from your talk.
Yes, I would rather invite them to interact at any point of time. It doesn't
Yes,
have to
sure,
wait at
sure,
the
sir.
end. If they have a specific point on what I discussed, they should feel free to start and also stop me at that point. But 1.5 hours is a long time for you, and it's not a long time for a speaker, because when there are 70, 80 slides, of course, we will run through that, but that's not the point. The point is about how many slides actually make sense to you. I think that's more important. Okay, so let me go back and share my screen. I'll share the entire screen because there are other things I would like to show you in the course of the lecture. Okay, so the idea of effective teaching learning pedagogies and implementing them through the online platforms. And we have now the MOOCs model also implemented in India with a slight variation of what we call as a proctored examination model. The teaching and learning happens online, but the examination and assessment, final assessment, do happen in centers with ID verification, and therefore AICTE trusts the process of MOOCs as credible enough for certification and also credit transfer. UGC has also imposed the requirement that up to 40% of your teaching learning processes can be chosen from the SWAYAM platform. 40 is very, very high. My original suggestion to UGC 5 years ago was 10%, but they have their own issues in bringing institutions together and the quality of education. Therefore, it's a large percentage. It's a fraction of almost 1 course per semester a student can take outside of the system of the educational institution and the program. But with all of that, the MOOCs now being the process by which a large number of students certify themselves, what do we as teachers do? If other teachers are giving lectures, then what are our roles as teachers in the student population, to the student population that we have in our institution? A lot of these questions, I will address them. I would say that you do know all of these, but in case you find something interesting, I would be very happy to expand on it. Okay. Now, the institution IIT Madras basically made me what I am today in terms of everything that I have been doing in the technology enhanced learning sphere. And right from 1993, when I first in McGill University itself, through my former mentor, I came to know the animation program. And remember, Microsoft Word had just come in 91 or 92 with 8 disk floppy drives. And so you had to install that in your IBM personal computer, and then you use Word. But Word's equation editor and other things were very, very preliminary. And we used something called KaiWriter at the time. So technology evolved from that. And I came to know of Flash and Macromedia, Authorware. These are the 2 softwares, and also another one called Animator Pro, which was Autodesk's animation program. This was 1993. 1996, of course, I joined IIT Madras, and I've been associated with the establishment of the web studio that we have in 2001. And one of the coordinators of the NPTEL project, which now has more than 4,000 courses, and I think about 15 million students have already gone through the process, and more than 1 million students have certified themselves. These are all later developments, probably after I left, but the seeds were sown by many of us in the 20 years till now. Some of them are still continuing. the national mission scaled up NPTEL into a much larger program of arts, science, commerce, and other educational areas to be brought in under the ICT. And now the Ministry of Education under the SWAYAM program runs the certification with the help of the national coordinators. There are about 9 or 10 national coordinators, UGC, Indira Gandhi National Open University, NPTEL from IITs. Then we have the National Institute of Open Schooling, National Institute of the NCERT, and even IIM from Bangalore, and quite a few others. So we have national coordinators who provide certification courses through their coordinating with multiple institutions. I also have learned a lot from the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology over, again, almost like 15 years since I've been their member in the e-learning group. And so many different programs and so many different school paradigms and teaching paradigms, more importantly in training programs related to technology. Many inputs have been given to me. And of course, all the teachers who have so far interacted with me have given me one or the other to think about questions. So just recall what you were doing until probably last year. Even now you do that, but slightly differently. You have to give a course. This is all teacher driven. You have to give the lectures, and you give the student a syllabus and tell them that they should know these things before they come to this program. That is, if it's a second year student, they must have the first year maths, physics, chemistry background or whatever. And then you teach. You rarely say at the end of the course, what is it that the students will learn in the beginning of the course. The students will figure it out at the end of the course, what they have learned. But you imply the outcomes of learning were implied in our syllabus. They were never explicitly stated. The modern curriculum development requires this as a primary thing. You must say what the outcomes of the learning that the students will have from your teaching a particular course. And of course, you did use the process of class scheduling and exam scheduling, assignments and quizzes online, all these things where many of you have done this at least once, probably 3 times, because of the 3 semesters that we have run without students in the classroom. There are many challenges and many technologies, and I'm sure you have seen many of them. The most important thing for you is not to worry so much about technology as much as how to use the technology. Do not worry about the details of the technology. If you have to do a very good flash figure, I mean, no longer flash, but you have to do a very good image or something like that. Most often you find a similar image in one of the free sites, and you probably acknowledge and use it, or have a student, somebody whom you can give a small incentive, develop things for you. Therefore, technology is not something I would worry so much about, but how to use the technology with the pedagogical approach of a course, that's more important to me. And the pedagogies are basically teaching, learning, sequence of processes that you have to follow in order to make the teaching effective and the learning to be purposeful. Therefore, it is important to understand that whether it's online or offline, the pedagogies are the same. The tools that you use for the 2 different media will be different, but the components, the integral components of learning are not very different. COVID-19, of course, has redefined all our classroom instructions. And I'm sure every one of you have at least had 1 or 2 online classes. You never worry, you never knew whether the students were learning from you. But please remember, even if they were in the class, it didn't mean that they were learning from you because they were listening to you. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, you ask questions and then you will figure out that about 1/3 of the class is listening. The rest of them are in their own world, even though their eyes are on you. Okay. So it's learning, whether it's online or offline, is learner-centric. It's not something that you and that I as a teacher can impose. We can only enable it. Okay. So we do worry about designing the content by a teacher. And the content is designed in such a way that the learner learns when he or she wants, in addition to the time when the teacher gives the lessons in person, that is in a classroom or in a live demo, or what is called a synchronous classroom. But the student learns asynchronously. Therefore, it is important to have the access to the learning component whenever they need it, and not just when you give your lectures. A classroom is limited by that unless you record the class and leave the recorded version of the class to the students through your server. Because the students will have to remember what you said in the class. Of course, if you made a lot of jokes or if you really made very, very neat, beautiful things, some students will remember you, but that's not what we mean. Learning just in time is the access to what you said all the time to the students. And that's not something unusual because students most often read before the examinations. Teachers teach throughout the semester. Therefore, you have the asynchronous process already set in. So now, when we talk about the technology-enhanced learning and teaching, we need tools such as the learning management system. I think most of you must be using Moodle or any one of those LMSs. We do use social networking. My student groups are in WhatsApp. And I have a teaching assistant. My PhD student has a teaching assistant. And so he manages all the messaging and the discussion and other things. And since I'm a very poor user of WhatsApp and Facebook. In fact, Facebook, I've not used it for years now. And WhatsApp is something I do because my wife and my children basically pester me to look at it every day, every time. And so I do have it. But otherwise, my WhatsApp access is only when it is connected with the students for discussion and basically information. And today we have a beautiful set of online conferencing tools. I'm sure you are using one of them, either Zoom or Teams or WebEx or Google Meet, whichever, like the present one. And of course, there is a lot of tools available in the massive open online course format. All of these things are redefining our teaching learning process. So if you start wondering, how many things should I know in addition to my own subject? The list is basically infinity, but then you have to choose what you need to know at that point of time for effective delivery of what you already have been as a subject expert. Therefore, the tools and technologies keep changing. You have to catch up with it. Okay, you don't eat the same food all the 24, all the 365 days. You do change, and your food habits change. Your other social habits also evolve. In a similar way, your educational method should also be updated with technology, not necessarily state-of-the-art technologies, but technologies that serve the purpose. Zoom today is one of the very important conference tools, and Teams and WebEx and Google Meet are similar. One conference tool today is absolutely important, and of course, a good network connection and the students having the data access to them. These are important for an effective online delivery and the pickup mechanism. In addition to that, we have a lot of disruptive engagements for education. Television is there, email, internet, mobile, and Google, it's uncle or auntie, depending on the child that I spoke to. They consider Google as essentially an omnipresent human, because anything that they know, they type it and they get some answers. And of course, we have COVID. Therefore, what are the best that we can do and how do we draw benefits from each of them? Please remember, we have about 100 million students. And only 100 courses were there on the internet around 1996. I saw the internet in 1996. If some of you haven't seen it, I knew PDF files are being uploaded and VRML files are being uploaded at the time. And then the videos, the music audios, CD audios were completely converted into MP3, and they were uploaded despite all the anti-regulation on the uploading. And so 1996 started seeing, 95 to 98, started seeing people getting active into this, but the number of college professors who would be active on the internet was less than 1% then. And now it is probably about 8 to 10%. The remaining are still not very active. They are passive users of the internet. About 100 courses, and now we have 100,000 courses. So in 20 years, the internet now has become a body of information, but please remember, information is not instruction. It's far more, instruction is far more than that, and it's far more focused. It's not enough that you have a lot of things to say, but it's important to connect them and to organize them into learning threads. And that's what the Pedagogies is all about. It's not University of Utah, this is an error. I think he's from Utah State University, David Merrill, and it's an old slide. I have not changed it. Okay. Now, there are 2 slides or 3 slides which I would want you to recall and remember. I'm sure you have seen Benjamin Bloom's educational taxonomical methods being talked about in any training on education. And what you might not have seen very explicitly is the Malcolm Knowles' essays on andragogy or adult learning. And I would like to put this up as the most important component of my message that I have learned from some of the experts here. Okay, this is, and in my view, it's an extremely important summary slide that I was able to make. Therefore, please let's go through this for a few minutes. Pedagogical studies and pedagogical underpinnings are essentially for pedagogues, that is, for children. And andragogical learning and andragogical experiences are for andragogues, or the adults. And you can see that the role of learner in a pedagogy depends on the teacher and depends on the institution, depends on the school. And the teacher basically decides how things to be learned, what is to be learned, and when it is to be learned. Of course, the teacher doesn't do it by himself or herself. She or he has the mechanism in terms of a syllabus, a curriculum given to them from the national school boards, respective school boards. But the point is, they decide how the students have to learn. And the primary techniques in education for a school and elementary level is transmission. You teach the students. You ask the students to read, or you read to the students. You give small audio video presentations wherever possible. And learning is organized into lesson 1. You must read lesson 1 before lesson 2. It's a standard curriculum. My father always used to have me, sometimes he would want to know whether I've been studying or not, and he will pick up the book. And almost always he'll ask questions from the first chapter, which I would have forgotten. And then he would say, if you didn't know this, what is it that you are doing now? That was his standard methods. But the curriculum is very, very important. Organized into learning A, B, C, D, and then the words, and then the grammar, and then sentences, and then paragraphs, essays, what you call us today, a free expression. So the learning is also subject-centric. If it is chemistry, what they call as chemistry in school is chemistry. Over a period, you will see that chemistry includes physics, and then some more experiences. Physics will also contain mathematics, and therefore, if you want to study physical chemistry, you need to know physics, chemistry, and mathematics. And if you need to know physical chemistry of biological systems, you need to know biology and so on. They are, in that sense, the borders shade them, they go away. But in schools, the learning is very, very strictly subject-centered, and very often you learn a lot of things that you don't necessarily use immediately. They are provided as things for you to remember and connect later. Okay. Pedagogues, on the other hand, which is the higher education component, the moment they left the school, many of them do want to come back and learn things for their professional life, their career. Increasing self-directedness. You and I are supposed to direct to the students, not to teach them everything, but to tell them how to learn by themselves. You teach them to learn, and you direct them to important areas, evolving and commercial or scientific or social, whatever that is. You are supposed to have the knowledge and then direct the students in the respective subjects. Go away from dependence to you. The students at the end of this should not come and say, I learned the subject because of this teacher. But they should say, I learned the subject, but this teacher helped me to learn it better. The difference between the two should be absolutely clear. You don't teach what the students should learn. Tell them what they must know more, and you tell them what are the important components, and then you leave it at that for them to build their career. And experiences. The higher education has a lot more experiential learning, essentially laboratories. I think your principal was telling me that you had hands-on labs and various other things, laboratory experiments. So for students, experiential learning is extremely important in higher education. In school education also it is needed, but our infrastructure is not sufficiently well developed for us to provide the best of experiences to all the children. So we seem to miss out even simple chemistry laboratories or physics laboratories. In schools, they have to come and see most of it in the colleges. Problem-solving cases, you have to drive them to solve problems by themselves. You have to provide them simple simulations depending on the field of experience that you have and also on-field experiences. So adult learning is a lot more complex than the school or children pedagogical learning, which is much more directed and much more centered and much more organized. Adults are supposed to grow in their own way, and learning is also competency based, as you see. If a person wants to learn in mechanical engineering certain particular areas more, your system should have open electives and others to build the competency that they require. And therefore, higher education has not only defined the areas of teaching and learning, but evolving and undefined the areas of teaching and learning, which are now become centers. For example, today, machine learning and artificial intelligence, even though they have been there for years, they have never really been fixed into an engineering or science curriculum so forcefully as they are today. And many of us are not prepared for it. For example, even though we call it data sciences, and we do, the statistics around data sciences has been more than 200 years old. But the point is, the data that we talk about is the data that has been created in the last 20, 25 years after the internet has arrived, and the access that we have. And therefore, you see the technologies and tools which have evolved also allow you to build in that period. You have to organize your learning around competency development categories. This is an extremely important component of higher education. It does not mean you don't do pedagogies. That's part and parcel of your teaching, but you include the second component a lot more in order for the adult to become completely, they are self-dependent. They don't need to be a trainer-oriented or a trainer-centered or a teacher-centered learner. Therefore, adult learning is extremely important in our way of thinking, and you still have to go through the university requirements of passing and other things. But there are lots of irritations in our teaching learning processes, which we can hopefully avoid after the COVID has taught us to get away with many of these things. Okay. Now, I have a very simple, I don't know how many of you would, I'm sure you are all using PowerPoint, and I just want to give you a small technology something, my own views about how, if you are using electronic media, be very careful of its of their use. The first, I think 2 or 3 slides, I tell you, when you use a slide or a presentation, what is it that you need to do? I'm sure you are aware of all these things. Just have fun. And well, you use only when you have to. That's the first important lesson. Don't use PowerPoint as a starting point. PowerPoint is to be used only it needs to be used. Use your board, use a tablet, use something else to read and write and discuss. But if you need a PowerPoint slide, that's because of the following. A, it takes something on the board, project it on the screen. B, the visuals which you and you cannot animate on the screen. Never derive an equation using PowerPoint. Do not show the equation steps in a PowerPoint. Write them out. I think engineering teaching and science and technology teaching, there is a lot of these mathematical ideas that need to be explained. Explain them with the hands-on. Allow the students to follow your logic slowly, and therefore write them out. I have a tablet screen which I can share with you. If I tell you, it's very simple. Something similar to what all of you see. Turn up. Okay, so I use this in all my classrooms. I hope you are able to see a screen with a blank line. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if you have to write an equation like what I do in biochemistry, physical chemistry, please write them down. Don't put them on the slide. It doesn't make any sense. As you write them, you also can explain to them, this is a complex number, I square root of -1. And this is your fundamental constant, Planck's constant divided by 2 pi. And this is a partial derivative, P-A-R-T-I-A-L, partial derivative. And please do not do these things on the slide as screens. Give time for students. This is my view, and psi, the wave function that you need to worry about, which is the one that has all the information that's possible to have. And then this is the Hamiltonian, which is the operator associated with the total energy of the system. You see that? I think what is important for you is to worry about teaching learning processes very carefully. And avoid introducing concepts through slides. Explain to them in words. Write bullets and ask the students to write what they hear and see. The habit is dying. I tell you, it has its own ramifications later that these people cannot even write a sentence without an error. And if I see my PhD student write a full paragraph with no mistakes, my first question to him or her is, where did you pick up this paragraph from? Not to say that you have the skills, because many of them do not know. Therefore, teach the students to communicate well while they are with you. And therefore, that's possible only if you allow them to hear and write and read what you are able to do. Give them time. Higher education is not running a riot. It's basically telling them to learn, and you need to teach. Like my colleague used to say, you are not here to cover the portion, but you are here to uncover a part of it as well as possible so that the students have the methods to learn other things by themselves. These are disappearing practices long because the students have the tendency towards the end of the screen, they will do a click on the screen and store it into their logs and will never see them again, I tell you. All the things that you store and Xerox and other things, you read less than 1% of them. You store them for the fear of not being able to have them, and for the security that you have to have a pillow underneath when you sleep. The pillow is all these materials in your computer, in your laptop, in your mobile, but you never use them. Therefore, it's very important that what you store and what you show the students, give them time to learn. Once you tell them the process, I tell you, the students are much smarter than any of us in using the techniques to learn by themselves. Okay. The second one I say, provide information. Of course, don't write all the piece of things on a board, long sentences and things like that. Don't keep writing on the board, sentence after sentence. Obviously, slides are very useful for that. And for example, like what I have here, don't write a full sentence in PowerPoint. It's basically, it's a bullet which you are supposed to explain. The bullets make no sense unless the person who wrote the bullet explained them. If you put everything on the screen, that's a PDF file or that's a text file. I mean, they don't need you. Why do you need to read what is on the screen? They can read it themselves. Okay. Therefore, bullets are important, and never more than, don't clutter the screen with too many things. Give them space so that aesthetically students are able to see quickly what is being shown, and while they are also having the possibility to learn and listen to you. If you put too many things on the screen, the student will spend a lot of time reading the screen first and not listening to what you are saying. Therefore, please remember, you want them to listen to you as well. So never a whole text unless it is a citation. Okay. Last, on this particular component of technology that we all use, don't overuse animations. Don't put too many moving slides and the moving objects on the slides, because it's a distraction after some time, and people will follow the movement rather than the purpose of the movement. Okay, and this is not a Tom and Jerry animation where the movements are eye-catching and quick and or visual. These are lessons. We do change our eyes, adapt to them very quickly, but focus on the learning and not on the gimmicks. And don't use too many colors, because the purpose of color is to highlight something differently from what you are normally including. For example, here, I've just what I wanted to highlight. That's all color. The rest of it is too many colors. Readers don't understand why you have them, except to say they will have a graphic memory of your text in blue, your text in green, and your equations in black. They will not connect themselves at all. So it's very important. And visuals are to be used very, very effectively, and bullet what you want to elaborate. So finally, PowerPoint, it's the points that you have the power to expand in a lecture in the form of bullets. Therefore, this is a small takeaway. I mean, I'm sure all of you know about all these things. Still, you would do exactly what you have been doing. Think about it again. Now, this is something I've already told you. The idea of technology enhanced learning as we are going through in the pandemic period is, of course, these are all general slides, and let me skip them. And these two are not needed. We will go to the process of the strategies that we need for effective e-learning, effective online learning. Here, let me see. Yeah, this is, I think, important. This slide is important. So, as I said, continued access. Please, any college, by now they should have a server, they should have a virtual private network for the college, and the server should be accessible to registered students of the college and those who have paid the fees and who have registered for the courses. And you put lecture materials which may be copyrighted from textbooks or maybe not, maybe copyrighted to the faculty and to the industry, but put them for continued access within your system. Put it inside the VPN so that it's not actually accessible to the public in general, and so publishers will not crib about it. You are copying their materials and so on. You can technically take about 10% of any textbook as a model chapter for your students to learn, and the books publishers don't object to that, but provide continued access. And secondly, set up a social and peer-to-peer as well as faculty-assisted networks. I'm sure the administration and your principal and the IT team have already been working on these things, and many LMSs have these as built-in features. You just have to enable them and have an administration fellow identify which peer group belongs to which particular course and so on. So these things have to be done in the beginning of any instructional process, and allow interactions and dialogues among learners. Of course, students have the WhatsApp group today. They don't have to go to LMS, but you may not be looking at it. Therefore, it's important for you to have your teaching aides and your students, higher education students. They also learn how to interact with students in teaching and continue to collect course-specific feedback. It's important for you to know that you put in a problem in the question paper, which if everybody answers the questions correctly, then maybe it's too easy. They all get, I mean, it wasn't important, everybody knew, either before coming to the course or during the course. Second, if no student answers a given question, no student, not even one in a class of 100, that question doesn't have a place in the examination because you are not sampling the students properly. Therefore, this course-specific feedbacks are very, very important in your examinations. Right at the end of each test, get a collection, get a feedback from the students about what they think is a difficult question, what are the easy questions, and so on. Your students will never almost say an examination was easy. They would always say, even the easiest examination, they would say, is, sir, it's very difficult. But anyway, we did it. The moment they say we did it all well, I mean, you know what they mean. Therefore, devise these strategies for incorporating feedback into the development process. I do follow about 80–90% of what I have included here in my courses, but many things I've included from the other people's experience in our system. Another thing for higher education is that please have additional members, not just related to your topic, external members from either industry or research organization. Talk to your students, even one lecture or two lectures in a course, just to give them an orientation why what they are learning is important also from the industry and the research standpoint of those individuals who have accomplished themselves. Therefore, it is important to have in every course at least one or two lectures from a good friend of yours in the industry or somebody. Most industrialists will be very happy to be invited as guest lecturers and as an honorary fellow. You don't need to pay them any money. They will be very happy to give lectures and then request them to be involved in the evaluation. I think if it is less than 10%, no UGC or NAC or anybody has any objection to that. Therefore, it's important to have a significant relevance to what you teach and what you describe as a course, substantiated by your partners in the industry and also from other research organizations in your area of, or your field of research. Continuously upgrade the program. Please do not give the same examination paper every year. I tell you, the moment you give one examination paper, the backup copies have been stored for the posterity forever among the students. Okay, therefore, I think at least you should change the numbers. If you are giving an examination, you should not give exactly the same examination. Continuously upgrade your assessments, your course materials, your lecture materials, and also go down to the bottommost part. Of course, you cannot do that as a college institution, but this particular instruction go down to school education is for the ministry and for apex bodies which talk about digital education. Set up online and offline examinations. Please do not place too much emphasis on the exam. The problem with the Indian education system is that's the only decider, and therefore we have lost a large number of learners. Where is a question of evaluating them? I have a very simple and a very beautiful paper called "Everyone Should Get an A" by a very famous professor many years ago. The universities take the best of the students with probably A grades in all their schools, and 4 years later, you have graded them as A, B, C, and probably as failures. So in the 4 years, you have made the best of the students not interested in any which way, and something has happened to them. Therefore, I think you have to go back and evaluate what has happened to the university system. So evaluation is a component. Evaluation is not the nerve center of learning. It is only a justification. I tell you, A, B, C grades are marginally different from an S grade, a superlative individual, whom you can anyway identify in a class very differently. And therefore, there's no need to fail a student. There is no need to give 90% to all the students. What is important is some sort of an averaging phenomenon. Bulk of the class should learn at least 60% of what you have learned. That is why we say C grade, 60% or 70% is a class average. If you teach 100%, 100 lessons, the student should be able to articulate at least 60, 70 lessons. But for example, in a training program, that's not true. If a driver has to learn 100 lessons, he should learn all the 100 lessons. You cannot say, I have learned, how to accelerate, but I don't know how to apply the brakes. You cannot do that. Okay? There's no partial learning in skilling. Partial learning is possible in education. Therefore, it's important for you to decide which of those skills, which of those materials are more relevant to the course. So set up a number of online, offline exams. Do not worry about evaluating student examination papers. I tell you, even if you do 5 examination papers of 100 students in a semester of 4 months, it's going to be at the most 5 days, never more than 5 days. 100 papers in a day, that's all you have to evaluate. But the lessons that you learn, the experiences you gain, and also you see how much the students have takeaways from your lectures. Sometimes it is, it's bleak, and you should go back and reevaluate yourself. The student learned nothing from those 10 lectures. What's wrong? Nothing is wrong with the student. So something is wrong with me or what? I have to ask questions. Therefore, please remember, offline, online examinations and certifications are value add-ons. They are not the deterministic exit points. Today, unfortunately, in our system, it is because of the competition. But social learning is becoming now more and more relevant, and therefore allow the students to assess themselves. Give them a lot of opportunities to assess themselves. I will give you one example of something that I did in one of the classes, which the students were thoroughly surprised, and they enjoyed, of course, at the end of that. And then I will pause for a short break because I think the lecture is going on for more than 40 minutes. If you have some questions, I would like to interrupt and probably take some of them and then continue with the lecture. The experience I had was in one of the classes that I teach I teach basically physical chemistry courses in the chemistry department. I'm a theoretician by training. My PhD is in theoretical chemistry, and I'm a spectroscopist, theoretical spectroscopist, both in magnetic and optical resonance spectroscopy. And I also do quantum computing, quantum chemistry, and so on. Those are my areas of research. So I teach quantum mechanics to the chemistry students. I teach group theory. I teach some classes, statistical mechanics, and things like that. They are all physical chemistry orientations. So in one course, I gave the students almost like back-end quiz program, multiple choice quizzes, at least about 10 or 15 sets I gave them during the entire course. I'll come back to that model later. What made that model, that's called the flipped class model. We will see that in the second part of the lecture. But then in the final examination, I had 10 questions. The 10th question had 20% marks. The remaining 9 questions were added to give 80%. The remaining 9 questions were on the topics that I taught. The 10th question essentially had this as a statement. Each one of you as a student will write down 5 multiple choice questions on the things that you learned and give 4 delimiters with 1 correct answer and 3 incorrect answers. But the questions should not be from this examination paper or from the multiple choice questions that I have given you earlier. Each one of you should write 10 multiple choice questions with 4 delimiters, not repeated in the course in other form. I leave it to you as a suspense now. Does anybody want to know what happened? Yeah. Does anybody want to know what happened? Please go ahead. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. What do you think? What do you think would have happened? Give me a guess. I would like to find out if any of you have some specific thinking that would have come out as a result. No inputs from you? Please speak up.
You can unmute yourself and you can ask your questions.
Come again?
There would be several responses, sir. This is my.
Yeah, about the responses. What do you think would have happened?
They would have certainly come up with the.
Yeah, you're surprised. You're right. You're right. About 35 students out of the 50 in the class gave me 8 questions which were not repeated in any of the course each. So now at the end of that course, I have enough questions for the next course. I don't need to make them up. I only need to change the language and words and some multiple choices here and there. But they were floored when they saw the question. They just don't know, they didn't know what to do. And at the end of the examination paper, they all came to me, sir, this is very unfair. You never told us that you will ask us to frame questions ourselves. Now we are all lost. He said, no, don't worry. The 20% is the maximum for that. If you really give good questions, I would give you all the 20%. But if you don't give 20%, all the good questions, I'll distribute the marks to the other questions. That's not the problem, if you have done the other parts very well. But the point was for you to go back and think and retrospectively go back and recall what you studied, because the examination is a summative examination. Therefore, you are supposed to have read the whole 10 chapters or 8 chapters. Now, you can't come up with one question in each of the chapters that you read. The problem is either you or me, and most likely it is me, not you. So that's the way you have to sometimes, perform experiments with teaching and learning. As long as the experiments are directed towards enabling the students to learn better, no principal, no dean will come back and say to you, no, you should not do these things. You should work only on passing all the, making sure that we get 100% pass percentage in the university examination. That's there. That's in the corner. I mean, for that, you can anyway do a small job. I don't think that should be the process. The students who leave your institution must have a takeaway from your institution other than the degree by its name and by its certificate. That should be something else. Okay, now I stop for any questions any of you have, about a couple of minutes or maybe more. So if you have any specific inputs, please let me know. Otherwise, after that, I'll continue with the second part of the talk. Okay. Yeah, please feel free to discuss.
participant, you can unmute and interact with Professor.
Colleagues, all of you teach, so don't worry about. If you don't want to show your face, it's okay. but I think interactions are quite important for me to know whether I'm telling you things that you already know, or is it any useful, or things like that. I do worry about my feedback.
So this I'm
Yeah, go ahead, Madam Manjula. Yes, please. Yeah.
Teach from maths, sir, Department of Maths. And I feel that teaching maths to engineering students is really a challenging task, in the sense that it's used more as a tool by them.
Yeah.
So interaction with specific branches of engineering, I feel is essential to reach out to the students.
Yeah.
If you can give any such sort of how interaction can take place between departments, okay, between engineering branches and mathematics, I think would be really helpful, sir. Would be helpful.
In fact, I would go one step and see. I'll tell you, one of the most miserable experiences in IIT system, Madras system, is that the most number of students fail in the first year maths course compared to the number of students in physics who fail in physics and chemistry. Most students fail in the mathematics. What happens is the mathematics department is often a purist department. In a sense, mathematicians worry about the axioms and then building up the logic to add the sequence of the theorems and proofs. And that's very, very important in understanding the results. But for the engineering students, I would rather say the examples to begin with. I don't know how many of you have seen the MIT book on the calculus and differential analytical geometry. It's a very famous book with about 1,200 pages on maths. Almost all of them, all the problems are various applications all over. And CRASIC is something that you might have used in the past, the engineering departments would have used. CRASIC is full of applications and engineering. There's nothing wrong in teaching the applications as long as they are relevant to the student. And it is not expected for the students to learn the logic. You can always say the second course to calculus will take you through the limits and the sequences and the derivation of the differential and integral formulae, and also other things, take them to complex numbers and so on. That can be a second course. The first course should make them feel comfortable in handling simple algebraic tools or calculus tools, how to use them. I don't know. I mean, what is the best of it? I have no idea. It's the same thing with chemistry also. I mean, should we teach water chemistry? Should we teach cement chemistry? Should we teach this? No, I don't think so. I think what is important in each one of these areas, there are principles which are important. Therefore, those principles form the core of physical chemistry or organic chemistry. Teach those principles with one or two of these as applications. This is generally how the syllabus and curriculum should be designed, in my view. Did I answer you? I hope.
Basically, the syllabus is designed. We were affiliated to VTU.
Yeah.
So it's all about delivering right now.
Yeah.
The syllabus is defined by the university, sir. And I
by
think
by the ACT, right? You are using the ACT curriculum or the university curriculum?
Vishweshwaraya Technological.
VTU you are using. But yes. VTU, some of you can also write to them saying that consider including these or consider deleting these. I think syllabus is a continuous evaluation.
It's been done, sir.
I think that's important. So sometimes a few of us sit down and write what we think is important, but then the inputs from the others are definitely to be taken into account. Maths is a very tricky subject, I tell you. Chemistry, at least I know, most engineers don't want to learn chemistry. So I don't worry about it. Physics, they don't have a choice to learn. But today, what they don't understand is if you want to learn how the devices work, and if you don't know the chemistry behind it, you are a buyer. You are not a designer. Therefore, I think today the technologies have doubly ensured the basic sciences to be most important components of all engineering education because of the way the tools have developed. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that question. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
so this wasn't more from mechanical department.
Can you speak a little louder? Yeah.
Yes, I can just speak.
Yeah,
Sir, is it audible?
yeah, I can hear you now better. Yeah.
I'm from mechanical department.
Yeah.
So when I'm going to teach, I have my practice is to have an interactive session with the students, and
Yeah.
when I teach some process or if I take some concept, I'll teach them, and I like to give some most of the task to the students. But when I give the task to the students and come out with the next class or within 2 days, 3 days, but it's not compulsion, they feel that it's a burden for them. That is one restoring the burden to them. They doesn't come with the interest. If I take the majority, 10 to 20% will be interested. Majority 80%, they feel that it's a burden. Why should I do this? Sir, and they'll ask directly, will I be benefited? Will you give me marks? I will tell, yes, definitely I can add you the marks, whatever other than the question paper, I can add you at last, whatever it is. But don't come out with the just for the marks better. They just feel that it's a burden. I'm feeling that they're not coming out with any task or with the self-interest, the present students.
Yeah. No, this is a general complaint I have received from many, and I also experience among my own students in chemistry. Even though they are chemistry master students, they would rather like to be spoon-fed with information rather than being asked to think and come up with their own methods. But sir, please do not give up, because you tell you the 20% of students who actually solve these problems are going to be the designers of the future, and don't ever lose them. The rest of the 80% chose not to learn. That is all right. The society has enough mechanisms to absorb them in their own areas. They're not going to be harmful to you. They will definitely do what they need to do. But in any class, the persons who are motivated to learn more, if you lose them in the beginning, you have lost the most prized product of that particular subject. Therefore, I think it is all right to continue. You can always say 80% of the students will call it as a burden. They will give you a bad feedback. It's all right, but you are not asking them to solve a problem only by themselves. You are helping them when they come up with the solutions, or when they don't come up with the solution. You have given them time to think, and then you anyway solve the problem and give them the answers. And many are like that in the beginning. In the later stages of life, they will definitely realize that the methods that you adopted in your class, or what they should have also adopted in them. But do not shy away from practicing interactive classes and throwing some difficult problems. Please remember, do not give the students a problem for which you don't know the answer. Then the students will think that you are looking for the answer from the best of the students. So at the level at which you are teaching in the BTech or in the BE program, I'm sure you will be able to know all the answers by yourself, but you don't need to share the answers with them until they have tried it by themselves. I think that for them would be much more relevant. And it's always, the number of A's in your class is usually by design 10% or less than 10%. Why? Because those are the students who are motivating themselves to learn. And the best are the ones who will actually take the subject further. They are the ones. Today, Nobel Prize is given only to 3 people in the whole world in a given year, when 20,000 people are working, 30,000 people are working, maybe 100,000 are working. Therefore, people have to push, and you have to create a mechanism for themselves to push a little harder in the system and emerge as peers. So don't please give up. Continue to do it. Continue to do it. I always throw 10% of my examination paper, 10 to 15% of my examination paper will contain a question which very difficult. It's impossible for me to get more than 2 students even attempt out of a class of 50. But that 10% is how I find out who are those 2 students who can do things slightly differently. They will definitely become, I've seen some of those students have become the best students elsewhere, and now they are faculty or researchers or whatever. So it is important to keep that small window open for them. People who don't want to learn, you don't worry about them. You have to teach them. Whether they are willing to learn or not is their choice.
So one more thing I have.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So the first class of every semester, when I start with the subject, I'll give an introduction, and my duty is to tell the textbooks which they have to refer.
Right.
as a teacher, when I refer the textbooks, when I tell them the textbooks, which they have to refer the standard textbooks, which they'll get a good amount of knowledge and the links where they have to go for and to get the online knowledges, then at last the question is, the single question which I'm facing for many years, sir, can you tell me the book which is as per the VTU syllabus? As per the VTU syllabus. I'm really fed up of that because many students tell, sir, please can you tell me? I tell them, please do not go with that. But finally they go with the Xerox shop where they get 20, 50 pages and they go just study before the exam and go with that. And today that is the problem we are facing from the industries, where the industry experts are telling that the engineers, what they are coming out, their output is not fit for industries. The reason is that they're studying that as per VTU syllabus books, and this is what the even teachers are facing, and they are not able to convince the students, and it's not coming out from those people. How to face the students with this, because finally they are the studier, they have to study. They are not able to put the time for studying. They want to just give the time for WhatsApp or something, everything, whatever unwanted things. And they want the ready-made notes. They'll ask them, sir, give me notes, give me notes, give me notes. And the college also prefers give the notes to the faculty students. I don't know how well they will get knowledge with that notes with that 40 pages, 50 pages, because they don't use library. They never use library, and they don't go for even for students or online sources. So this is what the problem we are facing.
It's like this. In your class, the philosophy of a class teaching is that about 20% of the class does not need you. They will be able to learn by themselves if you tell them what needs to be learned in order to get marks in the course. They have the capacity. About 20% will also need you because no matter what you do, they will not learn. That's the bottom part. It's nothing to do with the intelligence of the students. It is the learning focus and the attention to details that the students are not willing to give. The remaining 60% of the students do need your help. They need some orientation to see what is relevant and what is not. How many of that 60% you are moving towards the top half rather than to the bottom half is your contribution as a teacher. So if the students ask you for a Kunji notes, that's what I was told by some of the North Indian film colleagues, small brief notes. Very often I give my lecture class notes. I tell them that if you understand everything or if you memorize everything in it, you will get some marks. Please remember, one student in an examination that I asked on a particle in a box model problem, I asked for a specific solution. The student wrote the whole exercise of the particle in a box, my lecture notes, about 12 pages. And then came to me and said, you have not given me marks. I said, where is the answer? Sir, it is somewhere here, sir. You only gave this lecture. I have verbatim reproduced it. I'm sure the answer is somewhere here. You have to find it. And I told him, that was precisely the reason why I gave you this problem. And since you have not given me that, I'm not going to give you grades. Okay? So the student was very unhappy. But what is it that you can do? In Tamil, we have a proverb. I'm sure similar things are there in other languages as well. I say it in English. One man can muster enough strength to bring 20 wild horses to a pond. Enough strength. But even 20 such men cannot make one horse drink if it doesn't want to. This is something we have an equivalent statement in Tamil, and this is the English equivalent. The students come to the college for various pressured reasons, not necessarily the liking for the engineering or the branches that they want to. The social pressures in our country are very high. The economic strata is very, very distinct. The rich, poor, and the divide is very large. People want to learn something very quickly and make enough money and go away. It's all right. I think in a society with so many billions of people, 1.2 billion people, and 100 million, 150 million students, we are not looking for 1 million Nobel laureates. We are looking for one Nobel laureate. And we are looking for probably 100,000 students who can build the country's industry, economy, and all these things. How do we sample them from a very large pool of students in the program? Therefore, my suggestion to you is that continue to give those students the notes that they want to. Let them do exactly what they want to do. And if they don't do well, that's their cause. But please do not stop teaching from the best of books, because the students who want to learn, again, similar to what I said to the other colleague of yours, The students who want to learn, don't deprive them the learning experience because you did not give them. Don't deprive them. I think that's very, very important. And teachers basically, finally, are remembered by the best of the students that they had who would contribute to the rest of the world, and they will all come and say, so and so was this person's teacher. I think that's important. And there is no escaping the fact that students who come to engineering colleges today, more than 50–60% of them are not motivated to learn engineering. That's not your problem. You have to ensure that 30 or 40% who are there by accident and who want to learn something have actually left with the satisfaction that they learned something very, very important in their life. So that part is as important. Okay. I hope. It's a sort of a philosophical answer, but that's how systems evolve. The best of the students should not leave with the disgruntlement that I learned nothing from the school. You know, it's like the old proverb, everything I learned from kindergarten. Fortunately, my education did not interfere with my learning. Those are all negative statements to tell you how university education is. Let's not contribute to that. We will drive the motivated students to where they are and give the students who want to get a degree and pass and do something else the minimum requirement and tell them, okay, you go ahead. And tomorrow, if you want to learn, all these things are there, you will learn by yourself. That's how I would place as the teacher's role in all the institutions today.
Thank you, sir. Good suggestion.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions?
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Yes, madam. Good morning.
Sir, usually we teach the algorithms in the class, and in the lab we ask them to implement on their own. But even though they have the knowledge, but they try to copy and paste. So how do we avoid these steps? They know that they have the knowledge, but they are very lethargic to apply their knowledge. They just copy and paste, and on top of that, they circulate to other classmates as well. So how can we avoid?
So one way we do is that laboratory notebooks are never given back to the students after they leave the course. We keep the laboratory books ourselves so that the next generation of students, no, what you are saying is copying among themselves. Is that right?
No,
Among
copy and they just do Control C and Control V from the Google. So
yes, they will do. Yes, they will do. Yes, they will do. You cannot avoid them because Google today provides them the information that they need. See, the whole point of experiment is not to copy paste, but to actually do it by hand. So if they don't do it, you have given them the opportunity. Let them go away with a basic pass grade, because I tell you, you cannot retain somebody in a university because they have not met the minimum requirement and you failed them, and continue to fail them because they will never meet the minimum requirement anyway. They will continue to fail. They will not go away until they have the pressure to pass, at which point they will come back and say, please do something to help me pass. Please do one examination, this and that. I have done that now this year. 5 students in the first year BTech 4 years ago have not completed the first year chemistry course. And they've all required an online examination to get a degree this year. I don't want to keep them in this campus. These people are not going to learn any better, okay? They need a degree. This is the one place where they have not been able to fulfill it. Give them a simple examination and you give them the minimal grade that would allow them to get out, because the more such deadwoods you keep in your institute, the more baggage that you will be collecting in your institute, and it's not very good for the institution's image. Students who do not do very well, the worst punishment that they get is they get an E grade, which does not help them anywhere. They have to redo. And no institution worries that, values an E grade. Students do not do. Don't fail them. Fail them if, obviously, in my course, I tell the students, I never fail my students. You failed yourselves because you do not know how to answer the minimum requirement. You fail yourselves. So, madam, don't worry about students copying and pasting. What is important is you have to appear stiff and stern and say this is punishable, this, that, etc. You sort of, it's a posture that you have. Never hurt the student. It's all right. They are 18 to 20. They just didn't have the right preparation, both in schools and at home, to do what we call as ethically correct things. And therefore, it's important to tell them, call them up and to give them a small ethical lesson. They will not listen to you, but good things have to be told again and again for students to eventually realize. So if they cut and paste, you see that it is a copy paste. All those who copy pasted will get the same grade. You don't know who the original source is. they get penalized for allowing others to copy from themselves. Let them go away, but the better students, you please give them the guidance to do the experiments better. And so in the class, you always have to look for the students who are actually performing well. And you must eye on those students definitely more. But if genuinely a student is not able to do because of personal issues, please have a counseling done for such students and tell them it is important. You are there to help them. You will counsel them, but you will help them to learn. Those who don't want to do things, you cannot make them do. No.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So I need another half an hour minimum. Do I have the time, sir? Madam?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You can go ahead,
So
sir.
I share my screen. If there are no other questions, I will share my screen.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Any other question? Any of you? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So this is the point. Yeah, a little bit about the taxonomy that I'm sure you have been given some such lessons. This is a beautiful picture that you will see on the Wikipedia. This is the Bloom's taxonomy diagram. The taxonomy is for educational organization of content from what we call as the base learning to what we call as the discovery learning. And you can see the 6-phased diagram. This one has numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And also the keywords which are very important. Number 1 is knowledge or recall. Number 2 is comprehension or understanding. Number 3 is applications or problem solving. And number 4 is analysis or understanding, comprehending at a higher level, meta level. And number 5 is synthesis, trying to do similar things and create other equivalent systems. And number 6 is evaluation, which almost leads to the discovery. That's the highest level of the learning attribute. This kind of organization was done by Professor Benjamin Bloom and a large number of colleagues of him in a US task force the activity. And the Bloom's taxonomy books are available both in 1953 or 60s when it was first published, and the revised Bloom's taxonomy in 2001 or 2002 is available. This basically guides our educational philosophies in India and abroad. And the first component is essentially knowledge. What do we assess a student at the end of a course? We ask the students to do the following. From things that you taught, ask them to select, ask them to list, ask them to name or define, ask them to describe, which of course many of you do, ask them to memorize certain things, label them, identify them, locate them. These are what are called the action verbs, which correspond to recall information, recall what was taught in the class. This is the first level. Memory is important, but rote memory is not going to do anything better than just being able to reproduce. But memory is an important component of learning. First one is this assess. The second component is comprehension. Now you ask questions for students to do something more than memorize. If, for example, you stated the principle, the first law of thermodynamics, that the total energy in the universe is a constant, and energy can take only different forms, but in equivalent ways, something to do with the first law of thermodynamics. Ask them to restate it in their own words, how much they comprehend this law in different contexts. So you can see, then you put things that do not belong to each other, but jumbled up, so you can ask them to match A with B. A has a set of objects and B has a set of other objects. so that they have to comprehend the relationship between A and B in order to match them successfully. And therefore, the relationship is the next level to that of merely remembering the factors, the facts. So the action verbs that you see are match, restate, paraphrase, rewrite, give examples, express, illustrate, explain, defend your writing, distinguish between two things, summarize them, interrelate them. These are all action verbs or keywords which allow your problems to be chosen to reflect what the students comprehend. The third is the application. Likewise, you see a whole list of things. Application now is to solve problems and to use the ideas in other contexts, like organize your thought processes, organize the lesson plan, lessons themselves into sequence of what are called the learning materials, generalize what you have learned to other instances and other cases, and dramatize, prepare, produce. You can see all those verbs. Okay, so these are all part of the table, that picture that you saw. And the analysis is level 4. Our university system in the IITs stop probably at this level, and in the universities probably stop at this level, level 2. And in schools, the state board schools, it's level 1. They are verbatim requested to reproduce from the textbook. Even the numerical problems in Tamil Nadu state board examinations cannot have different numbers from the numbers that were published in the textbook. So a textbook graphic memory by somebody can actually get them the 100% grade. And that does not help them learn things better. Unfortunately, our education systems are showing weaknesses in these things, and it is for us to correct in the internet era. The fourth level, namely the analysis, is where research and other things start. Higher education and research start coming in. You should be able to analyze the theory that you studied for specific applications and compare them, differentiate. You see all the keywords. The keywords relate to this idea of how you analyze the thing that you learned. And so this select is different from this select. Keyword 1 select. Keyword 1 select is a reproduction of what they learned. Keyword 4 select in the analysis is select from something else that you did not learn, using what you learned as relevant. So you should analyze whatever you have learned to see how much of that is applicable to the other things and so on. So you see, sometimes the keywords are the same in both places, but they have entirely different inferences. And synthesis and evaluation are essentially the final levels. If a curriculum goes up to level 5 or level 6, it's a complete curriculum. Basically, the individuals are expert knowledge givers later, knowledge providers later. Okay. Now, I think all of you have seen the Moodle. This is an older Moodle version I had. I organize my lectures and courses in the form of these and allow our VPN to be accessed by the students at homes. Most of them are at homes these days. And a few students have come to the hostels, but we still do not conduct classes on regular classes. They still learn through the network of sitting in the hostel. So Moodle or a learning management system is extremely important. Organize your lectures and organize your lecture notes. Don't worry about a textbook course. The textbook is an add-on. And what you might do is to give problems from the textbook based on the lecture notes that you have written yourself. What you see here, these are courses. In one of the courses that I have here, namely the course summary, particle in a one-dimensional box here with infinite barriers. Course summary, these are my own lecture notes, written from looking at various books. I don't reproduce them. I draw my own figures and I create my own graphs similar to what is there in the book. But I write my own English paragraphs and give the students, this is what I teach, this is your hand-held notes. That will also point you to understand the textbook better. So textbooks are important for outward learning, whereas lecture notes and the lecture and handouts by the professors basically focus the students to remember what are the points that they should elaborate later in the textbook. So both you should give, possibly. These are some examples of lecture notes and animations I used to make for many of my classes. I also did a fairly large number of animations. You can see them later in some pictures. And sometimes in Moodle, I also set up the examination using the Moodle's examination template. And that allows you to create statistics immediately in terms of what the students' score rate is. How many students have answered the question after how many times? And what is the average percentage? And you can see that here. Number of participants achieving a grade range between 0 to 10 in a given examination. Moodle generates the statistics in no time. Therefore, it would be nice if you use the templates of the learning management system for creating the question paper as practice quizzes. I don't call them as examination questions. I call them as practice quizzes to understand the lectures a little bit more and to apply the lecture material to specific problems and so on. So you can see the question 1 on which topic, question 2 on which topic, and so on. So this is possible for you to do in Moodle. So there are 6 or 7 different templates in question sets in Moodle. Take time to learn them. I think they also tell you to set up your own question paper later without technology. So these things have gone through with many educational experts, and you can see the statistics tells you how you are doing well with your quiz book. And therefore, if 18 students, 17 or 18 students, I guess, have scored the full score, and about 1 or 2 students have been the lowest. And you can go back to the Moodle format to find out which these students are, which of these, who are these students. You can call them and ask them, why, what happened? Are you interested? Are you not interested? Can I help you? Beyond that, don't go. Do not make them learn. They're adults. If they don't want to learn, no matter what you do, they will not learn. They're in the wrong place, and allow them the freedom to be there and give them a minimum, what you call as a certification is not the best of your candidate or whatever, and let them move to the next step and don't stagnate them. Because the more you stagnate such people, the more your institution will have headaches in dealing with them. Don't do that. Okay. I do a lot of animations in my course, and the animations are fairly accurate theory animations. They are created from graphs which are generated. Here is an example of one of the atomic orbitals that I explained to the students, the functional form of the atomic orbitals. Those of you who know chemistry will know that this is a d z square orbital in one dimension, that is in the theta dimension. And if you do it in the theta phi dimension, of course, it will become a full-fledged three-dimensional figure with the same model, with the plus here and the minus here and the plus here, which tells you why the wave functions are the way they are and how do you visualize them and so on. What are the nodes? What are the positive regions? What is meant by the negative region and so on. So sometimes I use the animation. These are spherical harmonics. Therefore, many of you in engineering will know spherical harmonics well. And I have simulated about the 15 spherical harmonics, L equal to 1, L equal to 2, and L equal to 3. That is the rank 1, rank 2, and rank 3 spherical harmonics. I have pictures of them. They are useful in chemistry as the p orbitals, d orbitals, and the f orbitals. In chemistry, we don't need beyond f orbitals. Therefore, beyond rank 3 spherical harmonics. In quantum chemistry, we don't use them. But in atomic spectroscopy and other places, we do use higher order tensors when we study angular momentum. Sorry about the work that is going on in our building. I hope it's not too long. This is my current course, 6017 Optical and Magnetic Resonance Spectroscopy. This is a help site for my students. The lecture notes are available. The lecture videos will also be available. And what the students will do is to study them whenever they want. This site is accessible all the time for them. And the lectures are added after I finish. Or sometimes I add the lectures before I actually give them, so that the students will have the chance to look at the lectures. So there are different models that you can evolve in the teaching learning process. And let me quickly go back to this. This is an important slide in terms of the management, what it has to do, you can't avoid this. You can't use technology enhanced learning as the method but not have the technology or the tools. So the minimum that you have to ensure for your faculty to begin with is that they have sufficient network and sustained bandwidth. If they are using their mobiles to teach, they should have at least 200 kbps speed. Or if they are using the laptop, it should be at least 1 Mbps, because video conferences are not very effective. If it is less than 1 Mbps, you start seeing pixels and you start seeing shades. So this is a minimum bandwidth for which the faculty need to be provided. And sometimes if it is not possible, you set it up in 4 or 5 rooms in your institution and ask the faculty to teach from that rooms in cycles, so that the facility is used in certain organized way if it cannot be provided to the individuals at homes. I think it is better to give it to the individuals at homes. And last year, the department allocation and also my own research funding I provided a tablet, what you see here. This is a Wacom tablet, to all the 34 chemistry faculty who needed it. I told them that you take this with you and you have your laptop or your desktop and use the tablet the way I was writing the equations in the first half. Use your lectures as the blackboard. This is your blackboard, except that it's your electronic board. The fact that the screen looks black is just coincidental. You can change that to any colorful screen, green screen or gray screen or whatever. And you can import files, the Adobe PDF files or PPT slides or animations, import them into it, and you can annotate them as you explain. Therefore, it is important for teachers to have an electronic tablet when they want to do online teaching and learning. In the meeting, yeah, sorry. This is important for the faculty. Please invest it. This investment will sustain for about 6 to 10 years if somebody doesn't break the tablet by dropping it off. It's a very beautiful tablet, and the what models you buy, and this can be part of the teaching packages for the faculty to teach from home. Desktop, most of them have, and of course I have my own printer. So I have an office at home which would allow me to do all the work from home when the COVID isolated us from even going to the offices. Within the campus, we were not allowed to go from home to the offices because of government restrictions. So it is important that the electronic device is provided to the teachers, and the students should have an electronic device access. Obviously, they have to have their mobile or they have to have their bandwidth. And you need a backend learning management system in the institute with a VPN, which is the Moodle or something like that. Moodle is free, therefore you can use it. And it takes an IT student and an IT employee to set up Moodle for you about 15 days. They can set it up for all the departments. It's not very difficult to understand. And you need to understand the online examination templates, multiples of them. And do not expect the students to be 100% fair and honest, diligent, and ethical in writing the examinations, okay, when they are away from you. Because even when they are in the classrooms in our institution, I see students cheating with some hidden notes and writing, looking at from the next person's paper and so on. But we appear to be policing. That is important. You have to appear to be policing. You leave everything completely, of course, there'll be nothing but mayhem. Okay? Which wasn't the case when I did my PhD in McGill University. 9 out of 12 examinations, where we were only about 10 students or 5 students in the class, because these are all graduate schools, higher education school. The professor will come in and say, okay, I have a 3-hour, 4-hour examination. It's 3 hours, but if you want more time, you can sit down and write. Here are the question papers. I ask all of you to be honest. I ask you not to discuss with everybody. I ask you to write your own lecture notes. And some books, some courses, exams, which are open book exams, you can refer to any book that you want. But I want your examination paper to be done only by you. This is an honor code. And if you violate this honor code, you can be thrown out of the university. I inform you. The faculty will go away. The remaining 3 hours, he will be in the next room in his office doing his work or her work. And then if you have a question, some doubts on the question, we just take the question paper, go to the faculty's room. I have this problem. Can you explain this to me? He will explain, he or she will explain, and then we come back and sit down and write. 10 out of 12 examinations, I wrote like that. Okay. We don't expect the honor code to work in India in undergraduate education because people do not understand what honor is, what a code is. You cannot make them learn. Therefore, when you give an online examination, you assume that about 20 to 30% will communicate with each other and try to reproduce the answers. Sometimes I give randomized questions. Same question paper like code A, B, C, D, and LM learning management system keeps that randomized, and the student will get the particular code, and my system will write in the Excel sheet that this student was given this coded paper. Therefore, the multiple choice answers that you have will be reordered in your system. So sometimes you can do that. Even that with the WhatsApp and with the mobile, the students can very easily get a feedback from them. So don't spend too much time thinking that the online examination will be foolproof, biometric, and your screen will be watching them. We tell the students to keep their windows on all the time. And many students avoid that by saying we don't have enough bandwidth, and therefore they turn the video off. Okay. Your experiences and my experiences, I tell you, students in IITs are in principle not very different from the students elsewhere. They have made there due to their training and other things. There are very bright individuals. I wouldn't say 100% of them are like this. I would say 20, 30% of the students are like this. But it's the remaining 60% who make IITs what they are, okay? Not the 20, 30% of students who do all kinds of things. So your institution is best known by the best students you have created, the best alumni you have created. Therefore, give them this method. Appear to be ruthless. Don't be ruthless. And you must have a video conferencing tool for continuing classes, obviously. Pay for a good one. Do not take a free one. A free, in management parlance, you pay peanuts, you get only monkeys. With no offense to monkeys, if you pay well, you get a good software and use the features of the good software. Therefore, video conferencing tools you use with good conferencing tools, that's this point of time. And basically, students should prepare the contents along with a good electronic tablet. With a good electronic tablet, I think the tablet is now an essential element for online teaching and learning. So these are, I would say, these are requirements that the management should pay attention to and take cognizance and help the faculty members do better, deliver better. Now, this I have already talked about. These are all things you don't need. Let me just go back to the last model, namely these are all, I used to make lots of animations. These are orbitals which I drew mathematically using Mathematica and Maple, I think, if I remember. So these were all created with exact mathematical details. And I also used to teach group theory with symmetry objects. So one of my students, project students, did all the 3D animations for the molecular symmetry of tetrahedrons, octahedrons, dodecahedrons, and all of that. Now, this is the last part. I'll take about 5 minutes. And this is, of course, is how you probably would want to run your online classes if you haven't done so. Namely, what we call as a flipped class model or a reverse class model for intermediate to advanced courses. The MOOC format is with the proctored examinations is what we normally are following in our examination models. We use short videos and plenty of online assessments, and we leave them on the net. And students, if they have questions to ask, they will ask. And then we run classes, live classes regularly for them to ask questions. Sometimes we don't repeat the lecture. We tell them the lecture that we sent you last week, now I'm going to ask questions. You announce surprise quizzes. Even during the lecture, after 6 minutes, your principal talked about 7 minutes of attention span. 7 or 10 minutes, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. The attention span is small. Therefore, you design your lecture of 50 minutes into about 4 parts, with each part followed by 2 or 3 multiple choice questions. Don't tell them. Announce the multiple choice questions as soon as the part is over and tell the students, all of you will give me within the 30 seconds to 50 seconds, just like on Banega Karotpati. Chat box, you will write your answer with your roll number. If you don't answer, I assume that you are not present. It's a way of taking attendance, if you wish. See, since they don't know when the quiz will be on, at least they will be connected to you and they'll be listening to part of it. and announce quizzes, surprise quizzes, 2 problems, 2 problems, 2 problems. At the end of the class, you know how many of them were there online. Okay. Let them copy from each other, because this is not an examination. This is for them to understand that they should be part of the learning process. They should be participating in the learning process. Their being evaluated is more as a participatory evaluation, not as an evaluation by understanding. That is examinations, that's assignments that you can do later. Okay? So use short videos, use in-class engage them brief lecturing, and suddenly sometimes I play a video in my class, completely unrelated to the class. But I have edited them because I know these videos are very relevant to this. A lecture on quantum chemistry, a small video by Linus Pauling on what he said, if it is available on the archive, cut it out, keep it ready with you and play it at the right moment. Then people understand how to go back and look at the internet of information to the relevance of your learning. How do you match these 2 things? Okay, it's important. So what we did in one of these things, of course, these are all, this is my, again, signature, some sort of a statement I always make. It's teaching and delivery. Lectures are short duration deliveries. Learning is a lifelong experience. Therefore, allow the students to have access to the classroom on demand whenever they need it. You lecture, but leave it forever for the students to attend and understand when he or she needs. So these days, recording the lectures and leaving some traces on them both are very important for both yourself and also for your learners. So you need to sit down and practice recording lessons. And if you have not recorded any serious lectures, record one in front of a Zoom camera. You take a Zoom video, 45 minutes, it's free. Go to Zoom, open up your session, you say, I want to run a video conference. And you are the only one, no participants. And you click the record button, start saying what you have to say, save it. And Zoom will process it and put it into your documents file. Go back and collect the Zoom file. Earlier I always say this to many meetings. Give this to your children if you have young children. Or if you are the wife of your hubby, give it to him. Or husbands may give it to the wives. What do you think my lecture is like? In 5 minutes, you will get the thesis of what you are capable of. People who don't have any difficulty expressing their opinion to you. Students will always say, oh, the lecture was very nice, even if it was not nice. But your wife or your husband will not have to be that polite. And children definitely will not be that polite. They will tell you exactly, learn. I think it is important. Do an introspection of how you record your lectures and practice for about 3-4 sessions. We always have the first lecture recorded with my film studio producer sitting in that session. He will not interfere. At the end of half an hour, once the recording is done, we'll say, now can we play the video back and tell you what are all the things that are very nice, what are all the things that you may avoid in the future. This video is never re-recorded again until the whole course is done. By 40th lecture, the teacher has become so familiar. Now we tell them, go back and re-record your first lecture so that we have a bundle and we can. So I think these days the tools and technologies are dime a dozen and they are all free. Practice yourself. You want to be a teacher, to be heard, to be listened, to be understood, and to be appreciated. I think you have to pay attention to the way in which you deliver the lectures. Okay? So the last thing, 2 minutes maybe I wanted to say about the flipped class that I did. In the flipped class, what I did was to record my lectures offline and make them online to the students and schedule the sequence and post them on the Moodle. I'll say lecture 1 for next week. Lecture 3 to 5 is for the week after, schedule them. And we call the students to online classes or offline classes to discuss the lecture. So my classes at one point of time were not lecture classes, but the student had listened to the lectures and they will come to the class and start asking questions, or I will give them a simple quiz saying that you have already been given my video lecture, what I recorded. I would have said the same thing if you were in the class. I've recorded it and give it to you. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but my experience was fairly pleasant, but it's a lot of time and effort for you. The students can answer in the interaction session among themselves. The faculty can help direct the students so it becomes a discussion room. And that's why now it becomes a reversed model. The teaching component that you have is now outside of the class. The discussion component that you were normally left for outside the class is now in the class. Therefore, the model is called the flipped or the reversed model, class model. And faculty may discuss even student projects online within the scheduled period. So there are advantages. So these were my components: video recorded lectures, background in-class quizzes, extension of recorded lessons using videos, other videos, solving problems as groups, and reference to open education resource from open courseware and other resources. You can also tell them where to look for internet, on what and how. So you can teach them how to search the internet effectively for things that they learn. They will anyway do it. You tell them the better ways of doing it in the class. Okay. The result was everybody is forced to learn. And you can build the taxonomy in learning. Difficult classes you conduct in the class. Easy lectures, you give them the hands out. And you give them problems and quizzes, ask them to solve. You don't evaluate them. You give your solutions after they have submitted all their assignments. You give the papers back and you give your answers back. Let them compare and find out what they were supposed to write and what they have written. You are enabling them to learn. You are not giving them the recipes to learn. Please understand. Students' peers become very important. Good students start helping the other students in this process. And it turns out to be one of the best methods for putting open educational resources in the whole of the internet to practice in terms of relevance to your subject matter. Of course, students complain, like what one of your colleagues told me. Students are not doing this. They come and complain why I should do all these things. They complain to me. In IIT Madras, there is no alternative. If I decide to run a course one way, only the Senate can stop me from doing that course. Students cannot stop me from doing that. That's the freedom I have. Of course, you may not have that freedom, but within the limited freedom, it's possible for you to do some dancing around to make sure that the learning happens. Students complained because every week they had to listen to 3 lectures outside of the class. And they were asking, why am I coming to the class? I said, you decide. You decide why you are coming to the class. You come to the class to discuss with me, come. If you want to listen to my lectures, you don't need to come to the class because it's already there on the internet. Listen. Okay. And over a period, students became more confident because the subject I teach. In the classes, I did give them quizzes on mathematics associated with that subject. And so they became more confident. And after some time, you can see that most students are picking up about 10 to 20% lag time. Most students are sailing with you. And they also see that the classes are discussions. Classes are not lecture boring, and they have to sit and sleep while something is written on the board. The teacher is always watching all the students as groups and asking questions. What about you? What about this? What about that? And so on. It's like a management class. Okay? Everybody passed the course, and passing grade was 50% for my course at that point. And because I had to work twice the time than the normal delivery of lectures. But I think we should, at least once or twice, we should experiment to see the joy in the students who learn. And it emphasizes participation and active learning. Do not emphasize on assessment alone as much as a student work submission. Give them regular submissions. Give different problems to different groups of students. This allows peer groups to evolve. And ask the students to attempt the assignments. If they didn't attempt the assignment, I will put up an Excel file in the class for everybody to see. Roll number 1 to 55 with the names. Quiz number 1, how many problems were attempted? And if it says blank, 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 the students have peer problems among themselves. Other students will say, oh, this guy doesn't do anything. 3 lectures later, they come and say, sir, please give me the question paper 1. I will try to fill it up. They will fill up, then I give my answers to them, saying that this is what the answer should be. I'm not evaluating you. I'll correct you only 2 examination papers, but I'll give you a lot of help in between to teach and learn. Okay. So if the students approve the process, initially, no. You don't like medicines ever, but they solve the problems. Okay. Medicines have to be approved, but will not be. They all have to do compulsory homework. 2 weeks later, 35 to 40% are ready to accept. 4 weeks later, everyone is serious because the teacher is not going to do anything else. If you want to pass the course, you have to go through this. Midway through the semester, backbenchers are slowly getting into the act. Virtually no one failed in the exam. And more importantly, the students understand how to learn on topics on their own by picking the right lectures on that topic. Okay. Flip the class, this is what it's called. And the onus is transferring the learning to the learners while you be there as the guide by the side rather than be the sage on the stage. These are two key phrases that flip class enthusiasts use. And also please remember, if somebody learns very well and becomes very rich, a satisfied alumnus is a prospective donor. Later on, you need to build programs in your institute. He or she will contribute very generously because they have nothing but fair opinion about the institute that they grew up from. Last slide, this is the last slide. Everything I said is negated by this one slide, but the last part is extremely important, which is how internet communities should be built. I think, however, that there isn't any solution to this problem of education other than to realize that the best teaching can be done only when there is a direct individual relationship between a student and a good teacher. A situation in which the student discusses the ideas, thinks about the things, and talks about the things. It is impossible to learn very much by simply sitting in a lecture or even by simply doing problems that are assigned. But in our modern times, and this was 1963 when Professor Richard Feynman wrote this, in our modern times, we have so many students to teach. His class had 180 students plus for the sophomore physics course. And those are the most beautiful lectures on physics that you see. After 55 years, they are still valuable. You see that. In our modern times, we have so many students to teach that we have to try to find some substitute for the idea. COVID was not anticipated by him, but the problem of learning was known to everybody. Perhaps my lectures can make some contribution. Perhaps in some small place where there are individual teachers and students, they may get some inspiration on some ideas from the lectures. This is the WhatsApp group. This is the Facebook group. This is the social networking among the students, the peer groups. The lectures are already there by the experts. Perhaps they will have fun thinking them through or going on to develop some of the ideas further. Therefore, record your lectures, do the best of them, leave them on the internet, sequence them, provide the assistance. There will be lots and lots of learners who will benefit from what you have done. They wouldn't care which institute you are from. They will only remember your name because you gave them a good lecture to learn, like what Professor Richard Feynman said in his foreword to the lectures on physics. Okay. Thank you, and thank you very much for your patience and for listening to me. And I'm still there for you to ask any questions you would be interested in. Thanks. Please give me 1 minute. I'll just get some water. I'll be back.
Participant, you can unmute yourself and you can discuss with the professor.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Participant, you can directly interact with the professor.
Yeah, you can ask any. Yeah, I will send the PPT to Madam, and you can. Yeah, I'll send it after the meet after this video session is over. Okay. Any other question? Any other input? I just want to know whether the session was very useful to you or partly useful to you, or everything that you already knew was being repeated in a different group. That would be one feedback, because what I have told you is basically my experience in learning individual things. See, individual techniques and tools take time with a small tutorial session. Sit in front of the computer. There are YouTube tutorials. Sit down and look at that. And so tutorials can be built by you yourself. So individual tools and technologies, I never concentrate in any of my lectures. In my lectures, I'm always worried about what I believe that we as teachers are responsible for, and how do we adopt to the system of the external technology environment and to enhance the learning by being there as mentors and not as people who have the final word. I hope this was useful to you.
Yes, sir,
Any
it was-
questions?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please. Yeah, both of you, one by one. Yeah, please do. Are you there?
Participant, you can unmute yourself and you can interact with Professor.
Yeah, whoever needs to, please unmute the mic and then talk to me. Yeah. Okay, it looks
Hello,
like.
good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, I am Dr. Sudha from Electrical Department in BAT.
Yeah.
Sir, so far we had online classes. We took some time to learn about the new technologies, preparing the notes, videos, everything. And now we are going offline this semester. So is our entire strain, the work that we have done, everything, is it just going to be waste, or how we can use this along with the offline classes, so that our effort and continued effort in using technology will be motivated?
See, there are two ways to look at it. One is to solve the teaching learning process of your institution. Okay, how do I use these lecture notes which I have developed using very painstaking efforts? What you do is the flipped class model that I mentioned, that you go through the edited lectures a little bit and keep them as the lessons for the students to go through when they come to your class. You see, one teacher already mentioned that the students consider this as additional work. For those who consider this as additional work, for them, let it be additional work. For the others who think that this is very helpful to them, ask them to follow it up. And you give problems based on the lecture notes that you have prepared in your regular classroom. And then after some time, the students realize that those lectures are useful and those lectures are prepared for their assistants. They will all download and start using them. And second, most important benefit for you is that now you are ready to be online for the rest of the world. If you think that your lectures make a difference to your students, prepare similar learning materials. And with the assistance of either Swayam or Swayam, there are so many service providers who are willing to host beautiful lectures by individuals, and you join them and your lectures are then in the YouTube. Others will listen to yours, not only your students. And after some time, you will see that there are so many others who are learning from you, not just your class students. So this experience of being with the technology is the first step for you to catch up with the technology development as you go along for the remaining academic period. As for a teacher, there is no retirement. The retirement is when the teacher decides not to work after retirement. Therefore, I would say you can give a very good lecture even when you are 88 or 90, if you are able to speak well and if you are able to understand thought processes well. Somebody will always help you with the technology. Therefore, you can be a teacher forever. So please do not think that what you have learned during the COVID period as a one-off experience, but that's only a starting point for changing your attitude towards teaching and learning altogether. That's how I would see it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Any other question? Hello, participants, any other questions?
Hope they're clear with your speech, sir.
Yeah, no, that's okay. This is something, yeah. Can you give few examples of innovative teaching practices? Okay, mechanical engineers. I think you all use CAD, right? Most of you. You don't know what is the power of CAD that you can actually simulate in your classroom lectures. And the other teaching practice, I tell you, don't give a multiple choice questions with one multiple choice correct answer. Always give, you tell the students that some of the multiple choice questions may have more than one correct answer. It destroys the entire coaching industry the moment you give a question paper like this, because the coaching industry only tells you how to look for all the incorrect answers. But if you give a multiple choice in which answers are very nearly correct, or pick all the answers which are correct or very nearly correct, and you give a question with about 5 or 6 millimeters, and make sure at least 2 of them are really right and 1 is close to the answer, and the students pick them up. You realize that the learning process and the learning taxonomy that the student has in his or her mind now changes completely, because they have to look for what is right instead of they have to look for what are wrong things that we can eliminate. If it is only one correct answer, they are always looking for eliminating all the wrong answers. They are not looking for the correct answer. But if you say the answers are more than one correct, multiple choice paradigm changes right away. I tell you, multiple choices are not stupid methods of asking questions. If you make them effective, and if you put complicated sequences in multiple choices, finally you are decoding your problem into the threadbare details. And the student has to understand each of that step very clearly in order to get to the final answer. So if you devise such questions, your teaching methods will become completely radicalized. I mean, they will radicalize the whole world. So assessments can be a place where you have to pay a lot more attention to how to mimic them. I would always say in teaching practices, in very simple, you keep your lecture to absolutely simple things. Give the students a very good and a very simple example, but give the students 2 examples which are slightly harder than the ones that you give, but you have the answers ready. Very few students would not do such things if they know that even if they can't do it, the answers will be given by the professor later. Many will attempt. So in a sense, I would say these are all standard teaching practices, but they are not textbook oriented. You don't go right down from a textbook the points and then put it in the class and then expand on them. The textbook is a side. The teaching is your erudition of how you have understood. In my class teaching practices, I always bring history and the development of the science by the individuals as part of my lessons. Every 10 minutes, I will talk about one scientist, how he or she did this particular part in that particular lecture. Bring in the context of the history, bring in the context of the society. In fact, in one lecture about how different people enjoy learning differently, I think this was only one of these lectures I gave, and in my class also, I suddenly found that with this video, I don't know how many of you remember Kolaveri D song, which was done by Dhanush and his wife in the internet and became a very famous and very viral 35 million or 50 million in 2 days. This Kolaveri D song in Tamil was such a lousy song, such a stupid song, but so many people liked it. And then somebody actually edited the Kolaveri D song with the graphics replaced by Shivaji Ganesan in all these 100 movies or 200 movies that he had. And the segments related to that particular expression in words. So if you type in Google Kolaveri D song by Shivaji Ganesan, you will see a complete different version of how a video editing technique can be morphed into an original idea. The same way, you take a very good lecture from somebody in your subject, sit down and write all the points, understand why he or she is saying, then you morph your lectures with those. It's not the same thing as reading from a textbook and writing the notes from the textbook. So you have to search for learning materials given by the best of the people. And there are classes that I wouldn't want to repeat, and there are classes that I would love to repeat multiple times, which are done by other people. And the lectures by the very famous OCW person earlier, they have all been pulled out of the internet because he got involved in some, unfortunately, sexual harassment case, and therefore Walter Lewin's lectures were all pulled out. But some of the older lectures of Walter Lewin, if you can find them on the internet, they tell you how to run a class. Fantastic. Fantastic. Walter Lewin, Lewin, in the OCW context. You can't find them in the MIT site anymore because they've been taken out, but they may be available from other YouTube sites. So there are beautiful ways of teaching lectures, and your enthusiasm should be revealed in the process instead of your repetition of what is there. And so passionless lectures are not very good. You have to be passionate about lecturing. And second, you have to avoid all the human imperfections in speaking. So you have to sit down and think about how to organize. Write down your lecture if possible in point form. You are not a native speaker and you have not the fluency in English language, you think you don't, then write down the points and keep the points with you. There is no harm in looking at a textbook and saying things, but the way you express it is much more. And I would say if any of you have the Stanford Lectures series, there are these beautiful lectures on theoretical physics in Stanford University lectures online, YouTube videos. 2 hours by the speaker, what fantastic. Okay, so 15 minutes, 7 minutes is our syndrome for the kids. But if you want to learn, there is no time frame. Thank you. That's a good question. There are many, many innovative practices. Tablets will help you a lot. Use the tablets. The one that I showed you, the one that I have here. I think the tablet is this one. You can see now basically what I have. And this is something I really have liked in all my teaching for the flexibility it gives.
Yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, sorry. If you're saying something, you need to speak to the mic. I thought one of you was speaking.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Yes. Yes, madam.
Sir, with so much of study material all around the web and younger generation being so much more smarter, what is your comment on the relevance of making the attendance mandatory?
No, I wouldn't care about the attendance. In fact, I violated IIT Madras rules on attendance several times. They don't also mind. The Senate also is there as a rule. But you see, the attendance mandation is to bring in some sort of discipline to the children, to the students. Please remember, the students are out of their home for the first time. Their tendency is to do things the way they want to do, which they could not do it in their home because parents were restricting them, they were following them, they were watching them. So now they come to these hostels and they come to the schools and they don't have to attend classes. They sit down in the canteen and do things, etc., etc. Now, a part of the attendance requirement, I would say the attendance requirement, make it mandatory, enforce it as much as you can, but do not punish a student who did not meet the attendance despite all of this. See, a rule is necessary for a society to conform to standard practices. If you don't have any rules, everybody will follow the way they want to. For example, in McGill University in 1982, when I studied, attendance was not mandatory for my class, for the classes that we attended, undergraduate or graduate. Half the students would attend the class, the other half will not attend. They will pick up the lecture notes and so on. But that's because the children would anyway learn. Most of them, they paid for their education through their salaries. Parents would not pay them. They will loan them. In India, we have children, we hamper them till the PhD by paying them everything, taking care of their expenses and so on. Therefore, the value of education is not seen. So have the attendance as mandatory, appear to enforce it, warn students who do not do this, so that the students will know they will not like it, but they will still come to the class. And if they don't want to come after all of this, leave them as they are. Okay. Make it, I think it is important to have some self-discipline. The children are not old enough for doing what they want to do. It's all right. It's all right to have a class. I make attendance mandatory in the sense I ask questions during the lecture. So if the students cannot fill in the answers, they may be attending, but they are not attending to my lecture. What do you do with those people? They are sitting in the classroom, but they are not answering your question. So making it physically, it's otherwise they will go out and do something stupid elsewhere. At least sit them in the class, make them sit in the class. At least for the first 3 years, they should be. You should make sure that they have a discipline enforced on them. I think that's important in my view. I hope I'm not being a draconian. I'm slightly older. I think it is important for you to go to the class, and even if you don't learn, listen to what you are supposed to listen. After some time, it does make a difference.
Participants, any questions?
Yeah.
Sir, I think they're clear with their doubts, I hope.
Right, that's okay. I mean,
Yes,
it was fun being with all of you, 80 plus 9, almost 100 people in the beginning for some time. So
So due to this virtual talk, we shared the appreciation letter on the screen for you, sir.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you, madam. That's very nice of you. Yes. I need to tell my HOD that I spent today lecturing, because we also give monthly reports where whether we gave extra lectures or published this and that. I will definitely use this. Please send me a copy. I'll send it to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will send you the email.
PDF files, yes. Thank you. Thank you. I wish you all the best. Have a pleasant weekend. Have a pleasant weekend, all of you. And please remember, the teaching profession has no age.
So we'll conclude the session, sir.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Participants, please stay back till the end of the session. So we'll have a photo session in the end. So on behalf of Bangalore Institute of Technology and IEEE BIT student branch, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Mangal Sundar Krishnan, who spared time and enriched our knowledge towards teaching learning pedagogies. Today, we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely be going to encourage all of us in handling our students more effectively, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Actually, we faced last year, online, it was more challenging for us. Now again in the offline to catch hold of them, again it will be little more challenging than the previous. So really your thoughts will definitely help all of us. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, below principal sir is busy with the administration work. On his absence, I would like to thank our sir, principal sir. Without his guidance, we could not able to make this workshop possible. And from 3 days, the workshop has been going on, sir. So I need to thank the IEEE BIT student branch and the full-fledged support in organizing this workshop. Sorry. I thank all the participants who were with us from the past 2 days and for their active participation in the hands-on sessions as well for the 2 days virtual session. And last, I just need to thank all the participants who have taken part in this virtual talk. It was really more helpful for each one of us. And the feedback link has already been shared in the chat box. All the participants, please do fill the feedback so you can have your certificates. Thank you very much, sir. So we'll have a photo session, sir. Please, all the participants, make your videos on. So we'll have a photo session.
Yeah, the screen you have to stop sharing.
Yes, sir. I'll stop sharing.
Sir, I'm Jalaja, sir.
Hello. Yes, madam. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for sparing your invaluable time and enlightening with us for your commendable talk on teaching learning pedagogy, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation anyway. That's most important.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, all of you, please make your camera on. Hope only so many are there.
Now you are really taking attendance. They have to come in online.
Thank you all.
Thank you, one and all. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, see you. Bye.
Yeah, see you.